Dark Places. I remember watching this trailer like a couple of months ago, and I completely forgot that this movie existed. I always fuck it up. I should make a list of all the trailers that I watch and the movies that I want to see, so I don't forget. Because I always tell myself, I'll remember when this comes out. I'll see it. I won't miss it. And I completely missed this movie. And I saw it like the other day. I randomly saw the trailer pop up in like my recommendations, and I was like, oh shit, I remember this. Like, this was supposed to come out. Has it come out? It has. So I finally watched it. And what made me really interested was the fact that it was based on a book written by Gillian Flynn? I'm gonna go with Gillian. It's the GIF debate again. I have no idea if it's Gillian or Gillian, but and of course that's the author of Gone Girl, and we all remember that one. And I read Gone Girl before watching the movie when it came out last year, but I haven't read Dark Places. I have it written on like my list, and I'm gonna get to it. I have a lot of other shit to read before that, so I'll get to it. It's okay that I already know the story. I was expecting something interesting like Gone Girl. I wasn't expecting like the movie to be as good, but I was expecting at least the story to be as good. And it was. I was interested, but it was way too predictable, I would say. Now the story... The trailer I don't think spoils a lot, honestly, but the story is about Charlize Theron, who, as a child, was a victim of a massacre. Like, someone killed her entire family, her mom and her two sisters, and she saw her brother in the house, so she immediately blames him. Her brother it's very much like the Memphis 3 story, where this is the 80s, the 90s, where satanic rituals were a big thing, and devil worshipping, and, you know, the media and the cops blamed everything on kids that listened to rock and heavy metal, and they blamed everything on a kid that wears black. So... of course, they were immediately like, yes, of course it's the brother. Oh my god, have you listened to the music that he listens to? Like, of course it's him. So, now she grows up. Her brother has been in jail her entire life. 28 years, basically. And, she is in desperate need of money, which was a really interesting angle, because you don't really think about what happens to these people that in real life really are victims of these crimes, where you're a child, you survive something so horrific, and you grow up without a family. Who takes care of you? And she has been able to get by from donations. People all over the country donate money to her and put money into her fund, I guess. Yeah, like college fund, but into her bank account. And it's been years now. It's been almost 30 years. The people, you know, people have moved on. People forget. And I think it was her lawyer in the beginning of the movie says, you know, there's new murders every day. There's new little girls in need of people's support, and they're not gonna keep giving you money. And she's like, no, but the 30th anniversary is coming up. Like, people will give me money. So she's lived her whole life without doing anything. And she has relied on people's kindness to get her through life. But it has been almost 30 years, and people don't care anymore. She's not a little 8-year-old anymore that needs help. So she's in desperate need of money, and she comes across Nicholas Hoult, who I really liked his character, and he was barely in it, and that's a big problem that I had with the movie that I'll get to later on. It was the distribution of screen time and the stories that were presented. I had a big issue with how much time was spent on each thing, but he's part of this kill club where people get together and they are, I wouldn't say obsessed with murders, but they're very interested, and murders are definitely their hobby. So they get together and they discuss things, and they actually solve a lot of crimes. They have detectives that come in, and they do like role playing and things like that. But so there are some weirdos out there, but a lot of them are actually really serious people that are interested in these either unsolved murders or cases that where they think that the person that was accused is innocent, and in this case they think her brother is innocent. So Nicholas Hoult offers her some money to come in and spend time with the Kill Club, and she decides to give them, I think, 2 weeks of her time or 3 weeks, because in that time her brother's files will be destroyed. Like, the city needs more space, and they're gonna destroy old files of solved cases, and her brother's will be one of those. So it goes from there. She is convinced that, and like, I've talked so much, but this is like literally like the first 10 minutes of the movie. She's convinced that her brother is guilty, while the Kill Club is convinced that he's innocent. So they're trying to basically get her on their side, and she doesn't really want to deal with it. She wants to move on, and she thinks that he did it. So they try to convince her that he didn't, and it goes from there. And the very interesting thing is that the movie goes from present day, where it's her sort of investigation, where she spends time with, she goes to visit him, and she goes to, look for her father and all this shit. And then 1985, when the story takes place, the night of the murder. And now, I have a huge problem with the way that the story in 1985 takes place, because literally everything happens in one day. I understand, like, this is the big day and they have to, make it dramatic. It's the night of the murders, but literally in one day, all this meaningful shit happens so that we know what everybody's position is. We get to see Charlize Theron and her brother's friendship, and how the other sister is annoying, and the mom has money issues, and they're gonna take the farm away, and the guy that he wasn't like a cop, but he came in to tell her that they were gonna take the house away, and then they, the brother's girlfriend, and then his friends, and everything happened in one day, leading up to the murders. Like, the mom's ex-husband comes in, and then the mom's sister comes in. It's like, in one day, everything happens. It's like, they could have spaced it out, at least over the course of a few days. How fucking convenient is it that everything happens on the day of the murders? Like, so that was a bit silly to me. And a huge problem that I had was, I was really interested in the 1985 story, but they kept cutting away from it and showing present day. And I was like, okay, if they're gonna show present day, I guess something should happen in the present day story, but it really didn't. I wanted to see her work with Nicholas Hoult and the Kill Club. I wanted to see more of like, I don't know why I keep thinking of Zodiac when that's not what I want to say at all. But I wanted to see something more investigative, I guess. I wanted to see her really get into it and read the files and be convinced that her brother is innocent, just like they are. But we just saw her sort of go around and be pissed all the time. The cursing was just unnecessary. I'm fine with cursing, I curse all the time. But her cursing was just like, look how tough I am. And it wasn't necessary at all. But Nicholas Hoult was barely in it, and I was hoping that he would play a bigger part in this. So they kept cutting to present day, but it wasn't that interesting to me at all. I was interested in the 1985 story. I was interested in knowing who the killer was, why there was even a massacre at the house, was it really the brother, what happened. And the more that story unfolded, I realized, oh, whatever, because it's totally predictable what's gonna happen. Like, and I'm not gonna talk spoilers because it's really spoilery, but there was one scene where there was just a conversation between characters, and I was like, oh, that's, like, I know who's the killer. It was very, I guess there was foreshadowing, which is good. It's good to have clues to your twist, just like in Goodnight Mommy, where there's clues fucking everywhere, and I missed everything. because I guess I was falling asleep during Goodnight Mommy and I missed every single clue that led to the plot twist. But in this one, it just made it not that exciting. Like, I was getting distracted throughout it. Like, it was a bit too long. Just like Gone Girl was a long movie, but you're completely into it. In this one, again, there was narration, just like in Gone Girl when Rosamund Pike was sort of narrating. I think Ben Affleck was narrating too, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember it correctly. In this one, she's also narrating, but it wasn't interesting at all. It was just like literally her thoughts, and I'm just like, I understand that this is based on a book, and you want us to feel like this is a bit like the book, and you want us to get close to the main character, but it's like, we already know her story, we know her feelings, she's already expressed herself enough times, we don't need to know every single thought that goes through her head. And it was shit like, she goes to find her father, and he's living in like a, like, not a fucking minefield, like a toxic waste, like, place. And she's just like, what does this say of me if my father lives in a place like this? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't care, like, why are you telling me this? I don't need to know every single thought. I assume that you are horrified by the conditions that your father lives in. I don't need to know what you're thinking about it. So it was very weirdly distributed, the time between the two stories. It wasn't even enough. I wanted more of 1985. At the same time, it was predictable, but it was a good story. I enjoyed it. It was a good mystery. Again, it was fucking ridiculous that everything happened in the same fucking day. Like, the brother gets into trouble, it's that day, and, you know, the husband comes in, and the mom needs lawyers, and the husband wants money, and the sister comes in, and they talk about the farm, and, you know, we basically learn about these people's lives and relationships over the course of one day. It starts off in the morning and the day ends that night with the killings. So that was a bit silly, honestly. I realized afterwards, I was thinking about it afterwards, because as I was watching, I wasn't thinking about the time, I guess, that was passing. But afterwards, I was just like, oh my god, everything happened in one day. And it was pretty ridiculous, honestly. And then the present day, I guess, I wanted to see more of her changing. I feel like 2 weeks, or like 3 weeks, whatever time she had in order to believe her brother, I guess, wasn't enough to warrant a change in her. To me, she didn't want to deal with things. She just wanted to move on, but at the same time she didn't want to deal with it. But at the same time she was like, fuck it, I need money, and fuck it, I'll go find my dad and I'll investigate this shit. And to me, her reasoning was not clear. She didn't want to talk to her brother in the first place. Why did she go visit him? Just because some strangers asked her to? Was she really that curious about the truth, and did she really have doubts? I understand that she had doubts about what she saw as a child. She was a young child, terrified at night her family was being murdered. She said in court what she said, and her brother was incarcerated. Did she really live all those years with those thoughts in her head, and she just waited for a bunch of strangers to come in and push her towards him? Because they weren't even pushing that hard, honestly, and like we barely saw it. We had like one scene with the Kill Club. Nicholas Hoult was barely in it. He went over to her and gave her some files, and he was like, please look into this. And she was like, fine. They didn't even give her more money, so I don't understand what her motivation was for even doing it in the first place. I assume that maybe in the book it's a bit better explained. I have no idea if the book is like from her point of view, or if it's third person narrator. I'll have to check it out. But all in all, it was an interesting story. It was interesting the way it was told. I liked that it switched back and forth, but the switch wasn't even enough. We didn't get to see enough of the investigative side, I guess. We saw her just walking around, sort of stumbling into clues, and the mystery in 1985 was a good one. You know, there were a lot of people involved, there were a lot of suspects, including her brother, and it was a really interesting story and a really interesting mystery, and I wanted to know who the killer was. But this minute there was this conversation that I mentioned before, I knew who the killer was. So, you know, there were still a couple of aspects of the mystery that were interesting and remained a secret, but overall, at least it was tied well together at the end. At least you're not left with any doubts about what happened, which is good. It's a closed story basically, but you know, it was way too predictable. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was slow though. It was slow, and again, I wish it had been either, I don't know, maybe the 1985 story could have been, maybe they didn't have to show it. Maybe it would have been better if it was just her investigating now, but maybe they wouldn't have been interesting enough. I have no idea. I liked the 1985 story better than the present day, just because in the present day there wasn't enough of her interacting with the Kill Club and Nicholas Hoult and all these characters that were supposed to be there to push her in the right direction. They were supposed to be there to convince her of her brother's innocence. And I thought, okay, we're gonna get some files over here and we're gonna sit down and we're gonna have a fucking conversation about all this shit that's happening, and we're gonna talk about these fucking suspects, and we're gonna talk about all these people involved, and we're gonna have a fucking conversation. And I thought, you know, there would be at least one scene where they all sit down and discuss shit, and we get a flashback and we see the truth. Honestly, I would have been fine with that. Just like one fucking scene where they sit down and they really discuss shit and they get to some sort of truth. And there was another sort of parallel story to this where the Kill Club was investigating another serial killer at the time, and that seemed really interesting also, and I wanted to see more of that. We didn't get to see any of that, and I feel like maybe they shot more. I feel like they must have shot more with Nicholas Hoult and everybody else, because I feel like they maybe didn't have the time to put everything that they wanted in this movie, because it's almost 2 hours long. I feel like maybe I would have been okay if it was over 2 hours. I would have been okay if it was like 2:20, 2:15, as long as we had more of her actually sitting down and reading files. We had a couple of those scenes. She's reading files and then she randomly calls a number and she gets the address that she wants and she goes to the place she wants. And it's like, it's way too fucking easy. Like, you could have done this shit years ago if you really wanted to help your brother. Why didn't you? Is it just for the money? They're not even paying you anything anymore. Again, her motivations to me were not clear enough. And I haven't even talked about spoilers, and I'm not going to, because this video is almost 20 minutes long and I've been rambling about. And yeah, Dark Places. I did enjoy it. Again, the 1985 story was way more interesting than anything else, and I think it would have been better if that was just a movie on its own, because that actually had interesting elements of really satanic rituals and all that shit. And it did remind me a lot of the Memphis 3 story, and all those, the Lost Paradise documentaries and all those. But in this case, it was tied to, like, the family aspect of it. And, yeah, Dark Places. If you watch it, tell me what you think. And, spoilers. So, yeah. Bye.
Mom has been in trouble. I heard rumors.
What kind of rumors?
The police are looking for you.
There's some serious allegations about your son.
Mom, he's a freak. You just go in his room, he's got all sorts of weird stuff.
I was 8 the night they were killed. The little orphan girl of the Kansas Prairie Massacre.
It's a real tragedy what happened. And your brother in jail going on 28 years.
If you want to convince me that Ben's innocent, you're wasting your time.
No, just cause pick your brain about what happened that day.
Tell me about this club.
We call it the Kill Club. Ex-cops, private investigators. We solve crimes. That's what we do. Go see Ben. It all starts with Ben.
What are you talking about?
Libby, Ben is innocent.
Here comes my little sister after all these years. Go ahead, ask the question.
I don't need to ask. I know you killed them.
No, I did not.
Then why have you never filed for an appeal? Who do you think did it?
It's a puzzle with lots of different theories.
It's devil worship.
I'm not ready for this. You lied. I lied.
Everybody's a liar.
It's time you tell the truth.
Sad for you, little girl. You're just as imprisoned as I am.